Right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to make a start. It's 12 o'clock now. So thank you for joining us for this webinar, Reclaiming Your Time. The webinar should take around 45 minutes and then we'll have questions at the end. And I'm going to go through the Zoom controls for you now, and then in a moment I will introduce Michelle. So for those of you that may not be familiar with the Zoom features, you can roll your mouse over the screen at any time to see those buttons at the bottom pop up. There's a chat button and a Q&A button you can put any questions into, and we will answer them if it's relevant at the time during the webinar, but mostly we will wait to the end. You can click on the leave meeting button at any time you like, but we hope that you'll stay because we've got a great webinar for you today. So I'd like to introduce Michelle Nunes-Vaz, our speaker. Michelle's got a lot of information for us today. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Rhonda. Just to answer the questions, no, in a webinar format that this is run, the people that are on the webinar can't be seen. You can only see us. So that's the format that we've chosen. It's not a workshop where we have interaction. It's just a webinar that we share information. But you are, as Rhonda has said, you're very welcome to chat at any time and ask questions, and Rhonda will help me monitor that. So thank you. So thanks again for being on this webinar. The irony is not lost on me that because you're here, you've actually taken time out of your day to learn something new, and potentially you're more organized because of that capacity, that you've been able to find the time than many others who haven't made the time. Now, time and time management is a huge subject, and I'm doing a short clip on it. So there will be areas that I won't cover. So let's consider the quote, either run the day or the day runs you. And sometimes if we're not planning, we haven't planned our day, this can definitely feel like what happens to us. That we just start on one direction, then we're in another, then we're in another, then we're in another. At the end of the day, we think, what do we actually do? So I'm going to try and give you some specific techniques and ideas about how to reclaim that time and get back some really good time management. So let's get into the agenda. So we're going to discuss why we're always busy and look at some mindsets that can help us reclaim our time. We'll identify where time's being wasted and discuss some practical ways to free up your time. And then what's next, and answer any questions you have. So I'm going to start with a poll that I'd just like to launch now, and hopefully you can all see it and answer that. And I will wait for a few seconds while it's being answered. So when you're feeling time pressure, e.g. working towards a work deadline, how are you feeling? You can answer more than one choice if you want to. Right. So most of you have shared that you like deadlines because deadlines help keep you more efficient. And that's really good to hear. And we'll talk more about that very soon. So let's kick off why we're always going to be busy. Here's my top 5 reasons. Work expands to the time available. We often pace our output to match the time we have, and our team members do this too. So if we give them 5 hours to do a job, they will take 5 hours, even though if we gave them 4 hours, they might be able to do it in 4 hours. And so budgeting time is something that happens to us, and it brings focus to our day and completion. And it's a good idea to do it for ourselves. So we might budget 2 hours to work on invoicing, for example. We might budget an hour for a meeting. And then it's important that we keep to the time that we've set. So I've said 45 minutes for this webinar, and obviously you can leave if you want to at any point, but my plan and my commitment to you is to spend 45 minutes on the webinar and practice what I'm preaching. So that's one of our habits of why we're always busy. Distractions. We might have a job that needs finishing, but if it lacks a clear deadline, then it will sit waiting, where we find ourselves procrastinating, picking up and putting down other seemingly more urgent interruptions and getting distracted. And sometimes when you actually complete one of those jobs that you've procrastinated about for ages, it's so easy, and you think to yourself, why did I procrastinate about that so much? Our perception of busyness changes over time. So when you're a young person at school, you think you're really busy, but you don't really know what busyness is like till you get to high school, and then university increases again. Obviously, when you're working, you think, what was I doing at school? It was so easy. It's the same as you growing a business. It just, as your business grows, you appear to be busier and busier, and you think that, but you know, when you only had 3 employees, it was so much more easier than when you had 6, for example. The perception in our world is that if you're busy, then we're successful. You think about how we respond to people who ask how we're doing. Oh, we're busy, which means we are doing well. You know, we've got people that want us, we're needed, so it's a good thing. And being too busy is often used as an excuse. So I can't exercise because I'm so busy, or I can't do invoicing because I'm so busy, or I can't follow up my debtors because I'm too busy. So it's sometimes used as an excuse to put off things that we actually don't want to do. So these are 5 good reasons and you may have your own reasons of why you're always going to be busy. So I'd like to start off quickly looking at the 7 habits of highly effective people, which was a concept developed by Stephen Covey back in the late 80s. It's an excellent book. It's well worth buying, and if you have bought it, try reading it a little bit every year, because it is something that we need to keep reminding ourselves. So the important principle about it is excellence. Excellence is not an act, but it's a habit. And excellence with your time management is not something that's a one-off thing. It's something that you have to build into a habit into your life. So consistent habits express our character and produce effectiveness. In the words of Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. So the first habit, of the 7 habits, is to be proactive. What does being proactive mean? So it's making a choice to improve your life through the things you can influence, and being proactive with your time and your time management is definitely within your control. You can control how much you sleep, how much you eat, how much you work. These are things that you can control, and you have to decide yourself that you're going to do that. The second is beginning with the end in mind. And we're going to talk a bit more about that later in this webinar. And the third is to put first things first, setting your priorities and focusing on them to avoid wasting time on unimportant and non-urgent tasks. We're going to talk about those a bit more in detail. So if you think about this is all in the dependence managing yourself area, and that's what the focus of this particular workshop is going to be on. Another workshop that I'll do at another point, focusing on 4, 5, and 6, which is leading others. And I have some great material that I've been working on for that particular webinar on how to grow your own victory and spread it to others with independence and interdependence relationships. And the 7th one is that what you're doing right now, sharpening your saw or learning something new and trying to learn something new. And I thank you for your time and spending that with me. So the next mindset, you may have seen this before because we refer to it quite often at Tax and Trust, but today I'm particularly linking it to the 7 habits that we've just looked at, and more specifically, the habit about being proactive. So being proactive is deciding to stay above the line and focusing all on the things that you can control and not being a victim and blaming others and excusing yourself, saying it's not my fault that I'm late, it was the traffic. That could be true, but if you'd left earlier, of course, and took ownership of it, then you would have been on time. So it's very confronting, this, to say that I'm not going to blame others or excuse myself. I'm going to take ownership of my own time management and become accountable to others and take responsibility for leaving on time, so I am on time, and more specifically, choose to do the things that you're doing. In the last 2 years, I have tried personally to act above the line and take control of my time in particular. And when I began my accountancy business back in 2005, I had a real desire to be a proactive accountant, one that could help clients plan and predict their financial futures. Then I became a reactive accountant. Like most of my profession, I was overwhelmed by the tax work and the compliance deadlines. And it was only very recently that I stopped blaming my lack of time on my work and became responsible to provide those advisory services, such as these client webinars, which take time to prepare and practice and deliver, and be, into my mind, a more proactive accountant. It's not easy to prioritize for myself education over pressing deadlines. I have been enormously helped by my team, awesome accounting team that I have, but it really was working out that I didn't personally have to deliver every single client meeting, that my team members were skilled and could relate to clients well and could show and share their accounts without my involvement. That freed up my time. And as a result of that, I can be now delivering different services and going to more education and learning how to be a better educator as well as an accountant. So I have definitely been living into this, and I don't find it an easy thing to do, but it has really, really been worthwhile. Stephen Covey's second habit of highly effective people also ties into this habit, which is called starting with the end in mind. So it's thinking like how you'd like people to describe you at your funeral. So without getting morbid, you can start being that person now. So staying above the line is staying firm on your time management, so you can be a person that was reliable and turned up and was on time. And that might be something that you can build into your life and so it becomes excellence, and time management becomes a habit and easy for you. I'm going to spend a bit of time on this particular slide because it's so important, and feel free to take notes. This book, Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, is amazing. So another book that I completely recommend that you read. It speaks directly with start with the end in mind idea. So it talks about being this person, this identity, and concentrating on improving and being that identity and building habits that go into that identity, and then the outcome takes care of itself. And I love to use the illustration of smoking because I think it's so obvious. So if you have an identity as a non-smoker, then you don't have a habit of buying cigarettes. And if somebody offers you a cigarette, you'd go, no, I'm a non-smoker. So our identity is wrapped up with being a non-smoker. Conversely, if we were a smoker, our identity is we're a smoker. Now, the outcome we might be might want is, I want to give up smoking. But if we just focus on that outcome and we still believe we're a smoker, it's just it'll last for a time and then it'll fade, because you have to change your identity before you can change the outcome. And so a way to do that is to think of yourself, I am a non-smoker. And therefore, when somebody offers me cigarettes, or if I go and buy a cigarette, I won't pick it up, because non-smokers don't have a habit of smoking. And the outcome eventually will be that you will become a non-smoker. Now, if you have a smoke, you just go back to the identity and start again. Same with losing weight or things like that. You start with the identity. I want to be a healthy weight. Therefore, when I have a choice of being, chocolate or nuts, what I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose the more healthy option, because I want to be a healthy eater. So it's working on this identity. Now, the whole thing is relevant for time. From a reclaiming your time perspective, you have to focus on your time, saying, I do have time to run my business. I do have time to do my invoicing. You have to focus on the things you can control. And if you're distracted, you have to stop those distractions. So let's imagine that one of the things in your business plan was that you wanted to get better at invoicing. So that was in your business plan, and you put time in your diary, 2 hours on a Wednesday afternoon, to focus on your invoicing. You're sitting at your desk, you've left the job, wherever it is, you've come back to your desk to focus on invoicing. You're sitting down there, suddenly an email or a text pops up on your screen or phone. It's called a queue. You see there's a message. You immediately feel a craving, to find out what it says. It's called a endorphin hit, that craving. You can imagine with smoking what that's like too. You open the email, that's called a response to the craving, which happened as a result of the queue. And then the fourth thing is you get a reward after you've spent 10 minutes or so replying to the quick email or text that you had, and then you have to go back to the work that you wanted to do. So what we have to do if we want to create a new habit, which was, I want to get my invoicing on time, is you actually have to stop or block those cues so that they're not there. So you're not craving a hit by hitting on it. And I have done this myself by utilizing Microsoft Office 365 has this thing called focus time, and you put it in your diary 2 weeks ahead of time, and that means that your emails are automatically blocked over the focus time, so they won't fill your inbox. And so that makes it a lot easier not to be hit by them, or turn your phone off, which is what I've done for the webinar. So I'm encouraging you to think about a habit that you would like to create in your life, and then, and to do with time, perhaps, and then think of a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward for that new habit. So in my time management habit, I have a cue every day of a handwritten list. I have it in a notebook that I turn over every day, of 3 things that I want to do each day. I don't try and make it more than 3. It's just 3. And I know my cue is my list. It's there, right where I see it, right beside me, right. So even though emails may come in, I have to focus on these 3 things that I want to get done by the end of the day. If I do that, it's a great day. It makes my day great. I create that list partly from my weekly plan, which I create at the beginning of the week. Now, I recommend this weekly plan for all clients and for all team members, so that you know what you're working on for the week. And it also talks about next week, so you can start preparing for next week this week, and you just start rolling your planning a little bit clearer. Teachers are particularly good at this because they have to plan ahead, but it's something that we all need to do. So my craving then becomes a wanting to tick off the actions on the list, and the responses, I do the work, and my reward is I get my projects, my to-do lists done. So a different habit might be you wanting to exercise every morning. Now that has to, you want to become fit and healthy. Your identity is tied up with that. You want to be a fit person, but you find a habit hard to achieve. So the cue for that might be getting your exercise gear and your shoes all ready the night before. And so the first thing you look at when you open your eyes is those shoes in the way. So James Clear talks about it being easy and attractive to do this new habit. The craving is you want breakfast, but you promise yourself exercise first, then breakfast, a minimum of 2 minutes. James Clear also talks about only 1% improvement. You don't have to focus on being 100% better. Let's just focus on 1% improvement. So a minimum of 2 minutes more walking than what you did yesterday. Response is you put on your gear, you go out, you walk at least 2 minutes and hopefully a lot longer on your plan, and then your reward is with breakfast. You can do the same thing with reading, putting a book on your bedside. The craving is you want to sleep. The cue might be on your phone to tell you to go to bed at a certain time. The book, you pick it up before you go to sleep and you start reading these amazing business books that I'm talking about and really help you in your business. I'm going to pause now for 30 seconds and let you think of one habit that you'd want to create in your life. I want you to write down the habit and then try and think of a cue, a craving, a response to that habit. Please. This next slide talks about the achiever matrix, which is also mentioned in Stephen Covey's book. In a nutshell, this matrix reflects the fact that we all live in a time-pressured world with multiple overlapping commitments all the time. Urgency is no longer reserved for special occasions. So separating tasks into 4 quadrants helps us manage our flood of responsibilities, do excellent work, and maintain a positive frame of mind. It directly reflects a third habit of effective people, which is putting first things first. So the idea is we've got an urgent here and important, and urgent and non-important, and not urgent, but very important, and the quadrant of waste, not important and not urgent. So the quadrant that we want to spend most of our time in is 2, and if we spend more time in this time, then we've got less time, then we'll spend less time in this quadrant of urgency. So urgent is just part of life. We're always going to get phone calls, we're always going to get interruptions, family things will happen, deadline driven projects happen, meetings, deadlines for tax, for example, is something that happens. It's always urgent. However, if we prepare for the urgency properly, this is where we do planning, prevention, values clarification, relationship building exercises inside and outside of work, true empowering of your team, and true creativity is in this space. You also have to think at yourself, when am I best in my day able to do this quadrant of quality? And for some people, it might be first thing in the morning, and for some people, it might be in the evening. I have a photographer who is one of my clients who says that his most creative space is between 6 and 9 o'clock, and he works actively in that time. He's more creative. In the morning, he has time to himself for exercise and things. He doesn't do his thinking time then. So for me, it's more in the morning that I would be better to do this type of creation and planning work. So you have to find out the time of the day that suits you best, along with your circadian rhythms. But where we find time is in this one, which is the quadrant of deception, where it's kind of busy work, but it's not really productive work. It's most interruptions, some phone calls, pressing matters, popular activities, some emails, some reports, some meetings. And then there's a quadrant of waste where we escape from commitments and time wasting and phone calls and junk emails and social media. So we have to assess ourselves in our life. Where are the quadrant of waste that we're spending time in, and what's in the quadrant of deception, and how can I get rid of those things to spend more time on the urgent and non-urgent important work? So now we're going to look at some strategies to find more time. This is the first strategy. The first strategy to reclaim time is to utilize the productivity pyramid. I wonder how many of you have seen this before. So the pyramid looks at time versus your return on the time invested. So there's 5 stages in order to maximize your return. The first stage is called the improve stage. This is where you work on mastering your expertise to work more effectively. And we all start off at this stage. So every job we do, we want to get better at the work we're doing. And that's why I'm suggesting reading books and things like that. The next return on time is to increase the time that we're spending on work by getting more people involved in what we're doing and delegating employees, contractors, and outsourcing. And so this will increase our return on time because we've got other people who we're leveraging off and increasing our hourly rate in effect by doing that. The third stage is where you're at a point in your business that you want to be more efficient in what you're doing. And at that stage, you need to invest in technology to scale by subscribing to systems and software that are going to help you with your efficiency. My next webinar next week is going to be on technology and improving your technology stack. And we've got different stack recommendations for different types of people. So that's particularly helping you to do things quicker and more efficiently by investing in technology. And then the final way to, or not the final, but one of the ways to get a really good time return is to invent a system or technology or create an app or software. Now, the billionaires in this decade are all software developers. It's definitely the way to increase your wealth. Finally, is to innovate on that software and technology and constantly improve it, and so that the reach continues to grow and grow. And Xero would be a typical thing that I'd like to describe saying that. So Xero was invented back in 2003, and it's constantly being worked on and developed and innovated so that more and more small business clients are using it. And obviously that's the highest return with the lowest time investment by the owner. So can you free up time by employing others or contracting out others? Can you free up time by investing in some more technology? Can you systemize something and actually sell that system later? So you can use this productivity pyramid to your advantage now that you know it. Strategy 2 to reclaim time is to stop working with the wrong people. It's not always easy to do this particular strategy because sometimes the wrong people, you've actually really enjoyed working with them. However, if they don't pay your invoices on time, they're draining energy from you. If they're treating your team badly or yourself, again, draining energy. If they're not living into your core values about time or are unreliable, then you need to open the door of opportunity to those clients or to those customers to free up your time to spend with better clients or customers, and your team will thank you for it. So I wonder if there's something or somebody that comes to mind that you'd like to open up the door of opportunity to for them. The next strategy for reclaiming some time is to run better meetings. And these could be client meetings, or if you're in a business like accountancy. And I appreciate that depending upon your business, some will run more meetings than others. There's value in having regular meetings with people if they are done well. These can be 10 minutes over coffee in the mornings, or meetings with prospective clients or meetings with existing clients, but we need to make sure they're efficient and valuable to everybody. So set a time limit and stick to it. If it goes over time, then divert that to another meeting. Consider having a report prior to the meeting. So everybody does their own report and then expected to know, like in a toolbox meeting or meeting at the beginning of the day of the team knows what they're going to say because they've already done their planning work individually. Set a regular rhythm for team meetings. Team meetings are best if they are frequent and for short periods. I'm really loving the daily huddle that I'm creating with my team, and it's become amazingly effective at helping collaboration with our clients and improving our teamwork. And I just wish I'd been doing it my whole 15 years in business. Setting purpose and agendas for meetings, having clear agreed actions which are written down to avoid miscommunications, and keeping some good accountability, having actions recorded from previous meetings, and then you can discuss them at the next meeting. So during lockdown, we're still having meetings, but we're having them online. We can still do that, and I encourage you, those of you who have teams, to keep going with your meetings. The fourth strategy to take control of your time is to do with a 10 hats organizational review. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this before, but the 10 hats is an essential mindset for understanding business structure, leadership, and management. It defines what roles are in your business are operational and which ones are strategic. It helps you draw accountability lines to allow for better planning, reporting, decision-making, and time management. It's really important to ensure that a business is sustainable and saleable and ultimately gives you more time. These 10 hats reflect the 10 departments that are in every single business, big or small, and every department needs one leader, but the responsibility and doing are not the same. So the leader might delegate the work, but ultimately they're the final decision maker. I have done the 10 hats organizational review in 10 every single year for the last 3 years, and it's transformed my business and taken a lot of stress away. Previously, I wore every hat of every area of a business, and I wasn't very effective in delegating, and so I became very much overworked. It's hard to live into this as an owner of the business and not take things back once you let them go, but it is important to do. And now every year we renew our 10 departments, because every year there'll be a change of team member or a change of situation of somebody's work. So it needs constant revision. So I do run workshops on this, and there's another whole seminar on the 10 hats, so I'm not going to go into it in a lot of time, but we do recommend this as a business practice. The benefits of doing it: you get good clarity about roles, and you get the ability for team to live up to their new role that they're given. That gives improved delegation and development for your team, clear accountability lines, identifies resourcing gaps that might be outsourced. So say you're not a great marketing expert, you could outsource that area to somebody else, or finance is often outsourced. Do you have to do your own GST, for example? Invoicing, can you get help with that? HR, IT. Oh my gosh, I've spent so much time trying to get my computer right with IT, and then I ask an IT person to help me, and 5 minutes later it's all sorted. So it's really important that we don't have to do everything ourselves in our business, and we can outsource, but to have a plan to do it, it makes it a lot easier. So I really encourage you, if you've never done a 10 hats organizational review, you will find time. The people that I've done this with have often been able to reduce their staff members because they've found efficiencies within the organization by changing the review, changing everybody's roles. Well, that I certainly found that I reduced somebody's full-time role out of the business. And one of my clients, they reduced 3 people. Other times you might be bringing in a person, but you want to know exactly where to bring them in, where the resource gap is, and that's where doing this work can really help. Now, delegating effectively. This is the 5th strategy for finding time. There's many misconceptions about this delegation, and delegation is a skill. It's not natural to us. Delegating isn't flinging a task at somebody and hoping they're going to do it right. Effective delegation requires communication. So first you must assess the task and delegate it to the right person, providing support as they learn how to complete the new task. You must communicate the parameters verbally and then perhaps in writing or with a written procedure to give to the person to back it up. Then perhaps you could ask them to repeat back the instructions to make sure they got it right, ensuring nothing was lost in the communication. Setting a clear deadline and budget for completion. Articulating objectives for a project so that the team member understands it, and more importantly, setting some time at the end to review how that job or project was done and how they can improve and do it right the next time. Don't be surprised or offended if over time they may have a new way of doing it. You know, I found team members have improved on my processes hugely. Many people confuse delegation with abdication, and I've definitely been guilty of this. So abdicating is if you issue a task and then you've forgotten about it. You haven't given clear instructions, you haven't asked if you understood, you haven't set a time frame, you don't review the outcomes, and that leads to distrust and lack of respect, versus the other one being delegating well, building trust and respect. A happy team up here and a distrustful, disgruntled team down here, because most likely you've abdicated a role rather than delegated it. I've been reading another book called The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, called The Advantage. It's this man has spent his whole life working on the fact that great organizations and great organizational health surpass everything else in business, more important even than marketing and finance and all the rest of it. So keeping your team happy, working well and productive is the greatest opportunity for improvement and competitive advantage in your business. It's been really, really good. So just going to run another poll now. Just a moment. So I'm just launching a poll. If you were able to create more time in your life, what would you do with it? Please participate. So, give more time to myself for your own health and well-being. Well, that sounds like a really good use of time. Awesome. So that's important, and that leads us directly to the next part of this webinar. What about you? At times, we all feel stress and pressure and a lack of time, and this damages our ability to maintain perspective on what really matters, both in the workplace and in our personal lives. And you know, and I know that we must make time for that wellness. If we don't make time for wellness, we are likely to be forced to make time for illness, as such as heart disease or cancers. And I have known personally friends and colleagues who that has happened to, who have been working under stress for a long period of time. So instead of making time to fit me time in around our work commitments, my suggestion to you is to put that me time in first. That's the beginning of the day, if that's the easiest time for you to exercise, or end of the day, if that's the easiest time. But flip it on its head. Instead of putting work around me time, instead of putting me time around work, put work around me time. Put the non-negotiable activities into our schedules, into our weekly plan first, and then fit the work stuff around it. There's huge amount of evidence that if we do this, we're likely to maintain our health and be able to both turn up and be more productive at work. So what are the next steps? Well, you need to assess where your time is being underutilized and become more conscious of the daily habits and the daily choices you're making that are impacting on your productivity of your time, and get clear on any new habits you want to create to improve that. Planning for improvement in your business starts with you as a leader. So I'd love you to think about some actions you can take as a result of listening to the webinar. And I hope the hour's been, this time's been powerful to you about bringing some change in your thinking. Continue to focus on what you can do and stop worrying about what's out of your control. Oh my gosh, that's so easy to say and so hard to do. I understand that. We are here for you and we want to help. So this 10 Hats organisational review that I discussed earlier, that is a group workshop. We do that for $5.95 plus 3 months. It's a very small group. It's a lot of work doing the organisational review. It might look simple, but it's not simple. This is a lot of job descriptions and thinking and working with team members throughout that whole process. But it's really, really worthwhile. Accountability coaching from $150 a month. We can help you keep accountable for your own time. If you'd like to find out more about that, then please contact us. If you want to have a copy of the Achiever Matrix worksheet, I have that for you for free, or weekly report template I talked about in this webinar, then let me know by email, michelle@taxandtrust.co.nz, and I can send those out to you. I have personally found them really, really helpful. So of course, this is an educational webinar. It's no substitute for tailored advice. But there are several ways we can help you. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the box. But if not, I'd like to thank you for attending this webinar. And as you go, you will find there'll be a very small exit questionnaire that you can complete. Yoda, listen to these wise words. No, try not. Do or do not. There's no try. So let's not try to improve our time. Let's improve our time. So make a simple plan today. Define at least one new habit in your life that you're going to take as a result of today's webinar, and write it down. And whether they're personal actions or actions to take within your business, give it an owner and a deadline. And if you want our support now accountably, we're here for you. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, we've got one question about if there's a handout for the webinar.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Rhonda, sorry.
Hi, we've got a question about whether or not there's a handout for the webinar.
Yeah, so that's what I've just said. So if you'd like the handout, Rhonda will send it to you. Please just send us an email at rhonda@taxandtrust.co.nz or michelle@taxandtrust.co.nz, and I will happily send you a handout. If you'd like a copy of the notes or the slides, just let us know in that handout as well, in that email to us. Thanks again. That's it. Okay, Well, thank you again for making time to attend to this webinar. We appreciate your time's valuable. Do complete the exit survey so we can improve and get your feedback on what other webinar topics that you'd like to see from us. We're going to continue with the webinar next week while we're still in lockdown level. It won't be weekly forever, but we are doing it fairly often while we're at this lockdown area. So thanks everybody. All the best for your business.